Welcome to another Dragon-Fall chat. We're going to do a couple videos with our friend Brian, of course joined by Josh, my illustrious co-host. You've probably seen him on here before. I'm Matt. Brian Niro runs Anvil 8 Games.
It's me.
Yeah, that is you. That is you. So you've been doing Anvil 8 for 5 years about?
Yeah, just about. I mean, we really, yeah, like we watched it like 2015. So
Yeah,
yeah, five
yeah.
years.
So yeah, if it's not 5 years yet, tick tock, tick tock. Um,
Yeah.
and you launched with Ethereum, but now you've kind of broadened out from that. And we'll talk about Ethereum and stuff in more detail.
Cool.
One thing I never asked you, and I don't know why. What the hell does Anvil 8 mean? Why are they Anvil?
Why Anvil 8? Um, there's a couple threads to this. It wasn't just like one thing.
Yeah.
You might appreciate this. Actually, the first part of it, the Anvil, came from a pub I used to drink in the north of England.
Okay.
That was an old blacksmith's, and it had like the old anvil stuck in the middle of the pub. And it was just like it was like out the countryside, like a little village outside of a small town type of thing. Country roads, we'd walk to it on a Sunday and have a couple drinks. And I just always loved it. I love the anvil as like a symbol of just, I don't know.
Creation.
Yeah, creation, hard work,
Mhm.
all this kind of stuff. It was there, like, basically the landlord was like, I just can't move. Like we'd have to bring a crane through the ceiling to move this thing. So like it's here. So
If the place burns down, there's still an anvil. Is pretty much
exactly, exactly. Yeah. And so yeah, I used to love that place. So I always had the anvil in my head as a kind of idea, like a symbol. And then there was a couple of things. My sons, their initials are A and G. So I always wanted the A and G to be in there. And then one of them in particular loved the number 8 when he was a baby. He had like a little toy that he would play with that was just an 8. So
So your
kind of
European,
wove it all together.
because you lived in England and then Italy for a little while.
Scotland and then Italy as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Scotland,
Yeah.
Italy? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So it's kind of autobiographical.
Telling the story. Yeah. A little bit, I suppose.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Good. Everybody got to know Brian. Really, we're done now. We've gotten there.
All
But so the first game you did was Ethereum. Well, give us a rundown for Ethereum. We're going to do another video where we get a more of a deep dive into it.
Yeah.
But I'd like to talk to you about Ethereum, Frontline No Comrades, and then the upcoming game X Chronos.
X Chronos, yeah, yeah. So Ethereum is where it all started, and that was, or is rather, a cyberpunk dystopia, a little bit like Matrix or Tron, where people download their consciousness into this world. It's a tabletop miniatures board game, so it's kind of a hybrid between a miniatures game and a board game. In theory, kind of pulling some of the best elements of both. It's skirmish level, so you're never looking at more than 10 to actually 13 models.
Okay.
Is the most you can have. Actually, I think the smallest faction you can have is like 8, and the most is 13, I believe. But yeah, it takes place in this kind of dystopic cyberpunk virtual reality. The trick is that in the game itself, you can manipulate the reality because it's virtual. So that the tiles of the game, of the board game itself, actually moves you're playing, which is
Yeah, it's not a static environment. Like a lot of the abilities. Like I've got the character and program pack that you
cool.
did,
Yeah.
and like a lot of that stuff is kind of like not necessarily like you'd think, just like creating terrain or whatever, but there is parts of that. But like manipulation of your surroundings seems like it's a big factor, which is cool. I mean, you're working in a 3D space with the physical copy,
and it definitely it adds a lot of complexity to the strategy. So
yeah, I that was one of the things that we were keen on is I come from kind of a miniatures game background, and a lot of time it's like my line of guys, somebody else's line of guys, and they kind of walk forward and like, okay, cool. So we definitely wanted to try and work around that so that you can spin the board so that my objective's over there and I can rotate it towards me, or I can push an enemy away, do that kind of stuff. So it does, opens up a different strategic element in the game when you're playing it. for sure.
Yeah, when I met you, you were a big, you were like doing like your own independent, like not independent, but like a spin-off of Warhammer 40K or Skirmish, which they now have.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it took them long enough because that was 8 years ago.
I have to say, yeah. I mean, I
So
actually
you were
feel
already
like
kind of working in that space where you're like, all right, I love this and I love that, and I'm trying to combine it into something that is like more
yeah,
feasible to play.
absolutely.
And you were also very much a terrain guy, as you built terrain that I was using in demos for years. Thanks for those
I
three by
remember
three.
those. Those were great. Yeah, I enjoyed
They're,
Oh,
they're
those.
down. They're
you build
downstairs.
those?
Yeah, he built it.
Some of them. I don't. You had quite a lot of good stuff already, but then
Yeah.
I think I just did some
The
of
three,
those.
like the one that had like the trees and stuff like that. That was a Brian Niro,
Yeah.
like the rivers and stuff. Like I remember, I think I came over when you were set in the water. And you're like, don't touch it. I'm like, I know, man.
You like put your thumb in it. Yeah.
It's gonna be all right. So I wasn't surprised when there was like a good amount of like manipulation of the environment and skirmish level when you did your first game. I must say, I was surprised when when Frontline No Comrades came out, because it is a card game, and I've never uh, like it is very well done. Josh is a big fan.
Thanks, Josh.
And like I've seen it, he was able to play it. Like you did a couple of events for charity stuff that we did,
Yeah.
so thank you for that. I'd also like to thank you you have donated to the Dragon-Fall Charitable Foundation the product before.
There's
So
more coming. Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, cool. Probably digital codes this year if you it'll save me a trip.
Yeah,
So
sure.
but yeah, so tell me how Frontline No Comrades started, because I think that was kind of like that must have been more of like a departure from your gaming upbringing.
A bit, yeah, definitely. And well, so one of the things was that we always had an idea in our head that we were going to have like different types of games.
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't just going to try and do like miniatures games. We're going to have kind of have like not a horse in every race, but like kind of have a bunch of different reasons for people. Like the first time we went to Origins, I remember, and I think it was like 2015. Like, some people were like really into Ethereum, and then some people were just like, no, I've got no reason to stop at this booth, And so we had thought early on, like, we're going to give people different reasons to stop and, have different reasons to make games and different types of games. And the game itself started as just kind of a dumb thing, like when you're kind of slap happy. We were working Gen Con, and across from us was one of the bigger companies, and they had like, I forget what it was this massive banner of futuristic robots kind of pew, pew, and everybody was just kind of standing across from each other shooting. And we're like, did anybody, like, they forget to duck in the future? Like, why isn't anybody like nervous about this? And when you're standing there for 5 days working these cons, it's just kind of like a running joke. And we said like, oh, we should make a game Frontline no cover or something like that, And then it was one of those things where you just say it, and then like 6 months later we're like, yeah, we should still make that game, And then 6 months later we're like, yeah, we definitely got to make that game. And so we
give us that's the seed. Give us the rundown of like what the finished product is.
Okay, yeah. So this is an interesting thing, because when you talk about it without seeing it, you get a very different impression of what the game is. But basically, so you're a bunch of conscripts getting marched off to the front, kind of like 1917-ish. Mm-hmm. You're basically a bunch of conscripts getting marched off to the front, and every round something terrible happens in the form of one of these incoming cards you can play. And your job is to stay alive by making those bad things happen to your comrades instead of you.
Sure. And it's that sounds a lot more dark than the presentation of the actual. I'm not gonna lie.
That's part of what makes the game so great, is that it's such a dark concept, but the artwork is so vibrant and fun.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I talked to the artist for ages about that. So this is kind of like what, I don't know if you can see.
It's got a Russian bear.
Yeah.
A little guy,
which is, I think, my wife's favorite character in any game ever.
That's good to hear. Oxna, yeah, Oxna's the best.
It's a little bit more fanciful than you were describing the Doom.
and I tell this story all the time, but like when I was talking, the artist is Kwanchai Moria that did that. He's great. And when I was describing all this to him, like, yeah, it's 1917, you're conscript, you're getting marched off the front, every round something horrible happens, you know, and I was like, and it's going to be like really funny, like really fun, you know, and he kind of, I remember he put his pencil down and he was like, what are you talking about? Like, this is like, you know, I was showing him like the source imagery and it was all like guys in trenches and stuff like that. But he just didn't sound fun at all. But to his credit, he pulled it off, you know, he really did a great job.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. We were just talking with Chris from Slow Death Games, and he just went off about this Coors War for like a long time in like our third video. So, like going back to the kind of cute but still like devastating World War I. It's a theme. It's a theme.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are gonna do another video where we kind of do more of a deep dive, especially because Josh is such an enthusiast, and it doesn't sound like I don't like it. I was the MC at the charity events, so I got to like look over people's shoulder, having a great time. I got the gist. I didn't get the full experience. And then COVID.
Yeah.
And then I know you got some expansion stuff going out for that, but let's talk about Ex Chronos. I don't know anything about it other than an image. I don't think you told
me. We haven't released much about it. We've kind of been trickling it out slowly, mostly because of this year has kind of put everything on a
sure.
You know, delay. It's been like walking through mud, basically, every part of this. You know, one of the sculptors is in Spain, and you know, they were kind of getting hit pretty hard before us, and so that kind of pushed things back a little bit. And then just when he was kind of coming out, we were getting and so we've been kind of dealing with like those kind of things, like everybody.
I'd love to be on a space station right now. Sounds cool.
Living the dream, yeah. So again, like this idea about having kind of different, you know, channels, different horses in every race. So we had Ethereum, the board game. We had the kind of fast, frivolous card game. We actually have Ethereum, an RPG as well. That we knew we were going to make an RPG, and we had just a ton of people that like the board game say like, when am I going to role play in this world? And at first we thought, I don't know, and then we're like, yeah,
it's an undertaking, yeah, for sure, yeah.
And so we put out the RPG, and then so Ex Chronos is different because if Ethereum, there's two ways it's different. The first is that it's a fantasy world. Oh yeah, there it is. There's the RPG. Love it. Looks cool in that red light as well, I have to say.
Yeah, man, I got the whole black light thing going on. So I'm ready. I'm ready to be downloaded in many ways. Like,
is that a euphemism for something?
It could be. Just download this video and watch it.
Ex Chronos.
Ex Chronos, yes. So the first way it's different is that it's fantasy. It's kind of sorcery and you know, but we wanted to have a theme, like it's kind of Northern European fantasy. So like, you know, there's elves in it, but they're not like Tolkien's elves. They're not pretty. They're the kind of elves that do really dastardly things from like the old Irish mythologies and the old kind of Norse mythologies, and the ones that are like
stealing babies out of cribs.
There you go. Yeah, that type of stuff. So it's that fantastical stuff, but it's kind of got a darker edge to it. The idea of the world is that it's a planet that's kind of tidally locked. So one side is always facing the sun and one isn't. And there's a band kind of around the poles that is habitable. And then obviously it's just scorched on one side and frozen on the other. So everybody's kind of fighting for that resource in the middle, I guess you'd say. There's elves and dwarves and kind of our own kind of version of like orcish troll type stuff, these rock monsters.
Okay.
And I think the other way in which it's, you know, dynamic is that building off this idea about like Ethereum where you play with space, you know, the board's moving. In Ex Chronos, you might have gathered from the name, the thing that we play with is time. So
Chronos means time?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So you're manipulating time as you play in this game, and that's really, for us, for me anyways, designer, that's a really fun thing to play with. challenging. It's been hard to get it right, but I think we have.
I think you told me the name before, and I was like, the Guillermo del Toro movie, which is funny. Which is funny because I do remember, and I was going to bring this up in the Ethereum video, but I remember when Ethereum was Elysium.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then Matt Damon just ruined everything.
He really did. Yeah.
Really. And then you were going to name it Chappie, and that was ruined.
Yeah, that went straight out the window. Yeah, we had a whole like acronym built up. We'd written all the stuff already about Elysium. Yeah, and then Matt Damon popped out that film. We're like, oh man, you can't
find
cool?
And replace. Yeah. I've been there, man. I've been there. Like,
yeah,
very, very much so.
There's no such thing as a truly original idea, anyway. But you know.
Yeah, I know. But like when you write something and it's like, and it's not.
Oh, oops, I lost Matt.
Yeah, we might have lost Matt. Let's give him a second to see if he pops back.
All right. And that was going to be the best line of the whole evening, too, right there. I know it.
Well, before he comes back, I know one of the things he wanted to ask was how you guys have sort of up there. Well, is he back? How you've sort of pivoted in the age of COVID.
Yeah, so it's been interesting. I mean, one of the things that we didn't, I guess, realize, I mean, it had happened without us kind of becoming aware of it, I guess, is how much of the convention circuit we kind of built our business around. We're going to like 11 shows a year, basically, at that point, when it all kind of happened. Sure. In fact, we were at Gamma when it was declared a pandemic, and that was, Gamma was supposed to end on the Friday, and they declared a pandemic on a Wednesday, and on Thursday you could just see people, leaving the convention. It was just getting thinner and thinner and thinner. So that was kind of surreal. And so, yeah, without the conventions, we've had to kind of reimagine the whole thing, in terms of what we're doing. It was really surreal. It's been surreal to be home that much, after traveling. We were going to be in Essen, and we were going to do, one in Italy as well. And to be home so much has been, great, actually. I have to say, I've kind of enjoyed the break, the reprieve from all of it. But we miss it as the business model. But I guess, long story short, so we hadn't realized how much of the convention stuff had we built into the core of the business. So we've been doing a lot. We've been kind of trying to amplify a little bit the online presence. We've been reaching out. One of the catch-22s, of course, was at that Gamma that I was just talking about. We had gotten really good distribution deals finally, and we were really happy with that stuff. And then, like the switch goes. But so we've been kind of pushing the distribution channels harder and things like that, to kind of compensate. But like I was saying, everything's just slowed right down, and we're just getting used to working at a slower pace.
That'll do it. Am I back?
You are back.
Fantastic. Sorry about that, guys. Talking about.
Got so excited, you just flipped the table, right?
Did you talk about it? Like, have you made any adjustments to the business? Like, you're doing any tabletop simulator stuff or any digital release stuff that you were not really considering or was a back burner thing before?
Yeah, we have developed a tabletop, and we're putting the final touches on it now. Actually, there's a couple things that we want to automate in the game, but for Frontline No Comrades, we've got a tabletop simulator. We also have been playtesting Ex Chronos a lot on tabletop simulator, and so
it's interesting. And that was not part of your original playtesting.
Never in a million years.
Never.
So yeah, that's been very different.
So it's going to be almost not baked into its DNA, but part of its actual design is just from the start.
When I think about the game, I think about it on a screen now. I don't even think about the models and things like that. Yeah. I
mean, there's some cool stuff you can do that with, if you're having the models 3D created, mm-hmm. Then you can just people just pop them into Roll20 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's interesting, but I would say it's going to be good to be pushing plastic computer around. But so so X Chronos is probably your biggest project that you have moving forward. Do you have other like tendrils going on, or is it just like
Yeah, we
this?
do. We had a Euro board game in the works that has kind of we hit the pause button on as well.
It
Um,
happens, man.
yeah. That was fun to do. I hadn't really I don't play a lot of Euro games or hadn't before we started developing this. And then obviously it was like 3 months, so that's all I did was play like these Euro games, these resource management, these like really crunchy, like mind-numbing games, where you're like, I can't think about all this stuff. But so yeah, we were pretty far along with that, but we've just hit pause to see kind of how this all shakes out and what happens with X Chronos. It's definitely forced us to not like
With
stack
the
things up.
diversification, with how much you've been diversifying, I was waiting for you to be like, yeah, we're creating like a VHS game,
Yeah.
and we're just really going
Yeah.
for as gonzo as we can. So, um, so yeah, tell me like what's on your one last question, and then I want to know the best way to support you guys.
Okay,
Like, what's
cool.
on your like paint shelf or like your bookshelf? Like, what's motivating you right now for your
Um,
future ideas or hobby or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, and a couple things. I mean, one of the things with the COVID, obviously, I've gone backwards actually and kind of got to build some of our stuff. Like I've got one of our guys here that I'd wanted to paint for ages. He's this
Oh
big,
hell yeah!
huge guy with butterflies on his back and all that kind of stuff. And
That's
I
really
just never
fun.
had time to do that. So I've kind of worked backwards and started doing some of our own stuff that I never got a chance to actually enjoying, playing our games, not just like trying to crunch through them and build them and release them, things like that.
Well, I
Um,
mean, you can always be on a treadmill with game design where everyone just wants to know like, what's next, what's next, what's next.
yeah.
And when you're working on what's next, you don't get to enjoy your previous efforts. So hearing that you're just kind of taking this pause to do such is pretty refreshing. It's a great answer. How do we in COVID? What's the best way to support Anvil?
Uh, Online sales would be great. Obviously, we've got the web store at www.anvil, anvil-eight.com. And we've got it all on there. That's great. Obviously, we want you to support your local stores too, if you're able to. We're kind of around, we've got a much bigger kind of, is it a footprint? I don't know. We've got a bigger reach now that we've got some of these kind of distributors going, proper
Okay, great.
distribution channels. So you
Yeah, I mean,
should be able to find us.
it's gotta be rough for distributors. What's social media that you prefer, or just where you want to blast out to?
Yeah, we're on Facebook and Twitter. We don't really do Instagram so much, even though I know that's what the kids are happy about. But we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, just under Anvil 8 Games, both of those.
Yeah, I feel like everyone we're talking to is like they do 2 out of 3, and they're just like I don't have time to crack the nut on
Yeah,
everything. Like you don't
I
have a
have to.
MySpace. It's cool. It's
I
fine.
have to admit, one of the main reasons we don't really do Instagram is I hadn't like nobody's. We tried it for a bit and we couldn't get it to work on the desktop. It has to be like off
Mhm.
the phone, and we were just like,
It is.
yeah,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, and like it's good for like con pictures and stuff like that, and
yeah,
like short little videos. But like if you're trying to do something that's a little bit more, uh, like like for the masses and like a press release, I don't think
yeah,
it looks like an ad when it is an ad.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. Josh, you got anything for our man Brian here? I think we got a good overview of Anvil
Yeah,
8.
we managed to keep talking the whole time while you were temporarily disappeared, so I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, I had crimes to commit, so I apologize. So yeah, thanks Brian for joining us. So this is going to come out a little earlier, and then we're going to have some more in-depth videos towards the closer to the convention that we're going to do about specific stuff we talked about here. So yeah, thanks for your time, and look
Pleasure.
out for more stuff from Anvil 8 with the Dragon-Fall chat.
Thank you.